So, Katie, should we tell all of our listeners about our foray into malapropisms?
Yes, because this was so entertaining. Because everything relates back to this podcast, too.
Don't worry. Every time we are hanging out, we either come up with new podcast ideas or relate our life currently back to a podcast that we already have recorded and shared with you all.
Yep. And we like to talk about that, too, with whoever we're with.
Oh, well, that's because this fact, if you listen to our podcast, you would know.
Yes. Shameless plugs all the time.
But this was a particularly good moment because Katie came for 4th of July weekend to come visit me. So we were hanging out. It was Katie and her partner and me and my partner. And so the four of us are just like hanging out for the weekend and, just chilling, playing games, that kind of thing. And one of the games that we often play is catchphrase.
Yes, it's Richard's favorite.
Yeah. Yes. And, I'm down with catchphrase. That's fine.
And we're really good at it, by the way. Emily and I are partners and we won every time.
Right. Because, chicks v dicks. And
yes.
Katie and I dominate at catchphrase. Unshockingly. I feel like no one should be surprised. If you've listened to this podcast enough, you should not be surprised that we are really good at this.
Yes. Okay, so if you haven't played catchphrase, it's like a hot potato type game, and you have like an electronic, what do you even call that thing? Yeah, it's like a circular electronic device that puts a word or phrase on the screen, and then you have to try to have your partner or other people on your team guess that word or phrase without saying any of the words and without making gestures or, you can't say things like it rhymes with this or whatever.
You were trying to get me to guess the word grease because you were like, the squeaky wheel gets the...
So I was trying to get Emily to guess the word grease, which was part of the phrase that needed to be guessed. And
what was the phrase that needed to be guessed?
I think it was grease lightning.
Okay. So you're trying to get me to say grease lightning without having, saying these things.
So I take the first word, and to get her to say grease, I say the phrase, the squeaky wheel gets the blank.
And my response was, gets the worm. Because I don't know what went through my brain. I'm like, the timer's counting down, and I'm thinking about like, oh, that was one of the phrases that we were talking about with our episode that we recorded, the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
And I think about the early bird gets the worm, but I said gets the worm.
Yes.
And then somehow, and then you were like, no, it's a different phrase. And then I was like, the early worm gets
the grease.
The grease.
So you basically took two phrases and swapped them 2 times in your guesses.
I started dying because I was like, wait, the early worm gets the grease?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. And then, of course, Katie was like, oh, you just created a malaprop?
Yeah, because, we had just finished talking about malapropisms in our idiom episode. And that was a good one.
It was honestly excellent. I was sitting here just...
The early worm
gets the grease. That makes total sense. And of course, the timer's ticking down, so it doesn't occur to me right away that this is what's coming out of my mouth. And then when the timer went off, I was like, wait a minute. The early worm gets the grease. What am I saying?
Right? Because, I think people underestimate how much the electronic timer on this thing really affects your ability to guess, because it puts a lot of pressure on you. And so you're just like saying things, hoping that one of them will be close to right, because then once you guess the word, you can say it, right? So like as you're trying to get people to guess things, you're just like throwing things out there. But
the early worm gets the grease.
Yeah, the early worm gets the grease. Perhaps the bacon grease, the delicious bacon grease. I don't know.
I mean, so sue the worm for wanting to wake up to the fresh smell of bacon in the morning.
Yes, there's our Office reference for the day. I'm Katie.
And I'm Emily.
We're two long-distance best friends with a passion for learning about all the things that make everyday life interesting.
With my PhD in geography
and my master's in library science,
doing deep dives on topics is our idea of a fun time together. We'll share our findings with you on
Researching the Obvious.
Today, we're going to talk about chain restaurants.
Yeah, just very broad topic, by the way, chain restaurants. So,
yeah, it really came up because, most things, we're talking about where we lived and where we were growing up. And I go to visit Katie in Indianapolis and she's coming to visit me and blah, blah, blah. But we just noticed that there's a distinct difference in the number of chain restaurants.
And diversity of these chain restaurants, too.
Yes. Like, Indianapolis has chain restaurants that I've never heard of in my entire life. And I'm not talking like, I don't have In-N-Out Burger, right? Or Whataburger, or like Culver's. I'm talking like chain restaurants that I had never once in my life heard of ever. And then I find out that it's a whole chain.
Yes. Yep. And I feel like I'm always telling you too, or a lot of times in conversation, I'll be like, oh, guess what? We had a new chain restaurant open up, or we had a new restaurant open up. And when I look it up, I discover that it's actually a chain that has like multiple locations and they just opened the Indianapolis location. So
I don't know. There's just this thing with like regionally popular chain restaurants too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, being in college in New Hampshire, Dunkin' Donuts was like the chain.
Yes, right. In fact, I specifically remember going to college and being like, where am I going to get McDonald's or Wendy's? Because there was, they're out there, but they're not easily accessible or they weren't super close to campus.
Wendy's was the closest.
Yes. I remember that.
Wendy's, but I don't even, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know where there was a McDonald's.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm thinking about it.
But I just remember noticing a distinct lack of like fast food type, quick eat chain restaurants that normally at home, that would be if I was going out with friends or grabbing a quick bite. Like we have a million choices here. I mean, there's, Wendy's, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, Hardee's, Arby's, all within the same distance, right? All easily convenient to my location. Yeah.
But don't worry, there were like 3 Dunkin' Donuts in town.
Yes, that's true though. There was like tiny college town still had a Dunkin' Donuts.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I literally cannot think of where there was a McDonald's near our college town. Probably over by the mall, which would have been like a 20-minute drive. But within a 5-minute drive, there were 3 Dunkin' Donuts that I can think of.
Yeah.
Including, and now there's one on campus. It wasn't there when we were going to school, there. But now there's one just on campus. So, I don't know. It solidified my love of Dunkin' Donuts, that's for sure.
Yes.
Being up in New England.
Yes, and it introduced me to how wonderful Dunkin' Donuts could be, because I am convinced that the Dunkin' Donuts in New England are run better and are managed better and have higher quality, better tasting everything than the ones that I visit here. I feel like here,
that, though.
It's a crapshoot. Some of them are okay. Some of them are like, I've ordered a drink and I'm like, this is not good. Like it's not good. They didn't make it right. Or the food, I've had stale bagels from Dunkin' Donuts. Like, yeah, I'm telling you here, it's up in the air as to whether or not they're going to be a decent experience. But in New England, it does not matter. Every Dunkin' Donuts you go to is great.
Yeah.
Everyone that I've been to.
Yeah, it's probably because there's so many Dunkin' Donuts in New England that in order for them to survive, they have to be good. Because you could just drive 5 minutes down the road and go to a different Dunkin' Donuts if yours sucks.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. I thought it might have to do with regional pride because, New England's obsessed with Dunkin' Donuts and they love it so much. So maybe that they care more about the quality. But whatever it is, they are better. And anytime I'm in the general New England area, I specifically want to go to a Dunkin' Donuts there because I just feel like it's a better experience. then
No, that's facts.
then
And also the way that you order at Dunkin' Donuts in New England is different than the way that you order at Dunkin'
really?
Donuts other places. Yeah, I feel like in New England you ask for like a regular and they like know what you're talking about, like with cream and sugar and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know. What is that? I didn't even know about that.
Oh. Like I feel like if you go so in my experience, I feel like if you go to a Dunkin' Donuts outside of New England and you order a coffee, you specifically have to ask to put cream and sugar in the coffee.
Oh, yes, that's true.
But then if you order a coffee in New Hampshire or Boston, whatever, and you just ask for a regular coffee, then they're automatically putting cream and sugar in.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And then they're also like you can, I feel like in New England too, you can specify like numbers of creams and sugars.
Now that I do remember.
Outside of New England, you don't really specify.
Yes. Now that I was going to say, I remember going to the Dunkin' Donuts near campus and going with people who were from New England and hearing them order. And I'm like, oh, what is this order? Like 2 cream, 1 sugar? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And I got used to ordering my coffee that way. But if you do that here,
they kind of look at you weird.
Yeah, they get it, but it's definitely not a typical way to order.
If you're listening and you're in New England, then you know. You already know. You're already aware.
Right.
But if you are not in New England and you have feelings about Dunkin' Donuts, I feel like that is fair. But if you ever travel to New England, go to a Dunkin' Donuts and it will probably be a different experience.
It will change your mind.
Yeah. And get an iced coffee because that's just the way to go.
Yeah.
In Dunkin' Donuts. Even if it's like, the middle of January, just iced coffee.
Yeah, their iced coffee is the best. Also, you can get like a 32-ounce like iced coffee for like $4 or something, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, for real. It's true. But yeah, I also, when I was growing up, like not even in New England, just in upstate New York, we had chains available. But I would also say that they weren't super prevalent either. Like it was much more common to go to, I would call them like hyper local chain restaurants where like they were chains, but they only existed within the city of Rochester as a chain. Right. So there were maybe like
multiple locations. Right. Yeah. Multiple locations, but not nationwide and not, cross state lines and maybe not even out of the metro area.
Yeah. I was going to say not even out of like the county really. Like,
yeah.
So maybe like there was 30 locations, but they were very just in the city.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But this has come up multiple times with us that your experience of the chain restaurant landscape has been much different than my experience from the chain restaurant landscape over the years.
And I also feel like people who know me and have lived with me and are from the area that I am from and stuff, they're gonna think, Emily, what are you talking about? We had all sorts of chain restaurants. And I don't disagree with you. I can think of where to find Taco Bell and where to find McDonald's and where to find Burger King and all of these things. But drive to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And like
it's different.
It is very different. It's like that's all there is.
Yeah.
And even when I lived in Oklahoma, it was eye-opening to me because in Oklahoma, the only places to eat were chain restaurants. That was it. Yep. I mean, there were maybe 2 or 3 independently owned restaurants that I can think of. But it was basically chains.
Yeah, to give you an idea, too, I feel like, so where I live now on the north side of Indianapolis, we have about 6 Starbucks locations that are within a 5 to 7 minute drive of where I am. And I can think of 4 McDonald's locations that are within that same, like, general radius. So that's like, it's much denser. Like, the number of restaurants that are chains and the number of locations. And then, like I said, also, we seem to open up a lot of new chain restaurants that are often from other regions of the country. And those continue to open up here, I feel like, pretty regularly. I mean, I could name off quite a few that have opened in the last few years that were new to me, but are established chains.
Yeah. So all this is to say is that because of this prevalence in just both of our lives, it did lead us to wonder why. Why are there so many chain restaurants in Indianapolis, first of all? Why is there a lack of chain restaurants other places? And then just in general, like, what is the deal with chain restaurants? Right. And so that's kind of the purpose of this episode. We also had some listeners suggest chain restaurants as a topic, which was funny to me because as soon as they suggested that topic, I was like, that's crazy because we'd already been talking about this as a particular topic anyway. So I think the goal of this episode is to just kind of suss out the landscape of chain restaurants a little bit more. So maybe we should back up while we're starting here. We should back up and just talk a little bit about like what makes a chain restaurant.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so why don't we start with talking about some different categories of restaurants or types of restaurants that you might be familiar with that would also maybe be a chain restaurant eventually. So I looked at 4 different styles of restaurants that would typically be found in the chain restaurant space. Probably the most prevalent would be fast food or quick service restaurants. They often have drive-throughs or other methods of creating fast take and go type experiences. They have a lower price point, and therefore they're sometimes associated too with being a little bit lower quality or having less healthy ingredients. And the food's often cooked in bulk or in advance and then kept warm until it's ordered, and then they package it to go. So I think everyone's pretty familiar with fast food, but that's kind of how they're defined in this space. Then there are the fast casual restaurants, which are actually a much more recent development. They really came into being in the 90s, and they aimed to take fast food and casual sit-down dining and kind of make a hybrid. And so they're defined...
Elevate the fast food.
Elevate fast food, but also then bring down the whole, like, sit down and have a server and, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So kind of meet in the middle. So fast casual is defined by more limited service, self-service, or counter service. Like, so you go up and you still order at the counter, but the food's made to order and oftentimes highly customizable. So if you think about something like Chipotle, where you're going down the counter, you're telling them exactly what you want in your dish, and then they're handing it to you at the end. Price point between $8 and $15. So a little bit higher than fast food, though honestly, recently, fast food prices have gone up. And so, yeah, that was something else I was reading about, is that with fast food prices rising, people are selecting fast casual more often because it's almost the same price now.
Oh, interesting.
And they see it as still being a slightly higher quality or more customizable or a healthier option.
Healthier. Yeah, I was going to say.
And then there's, of course, casual dining, which would be relaxed and informal, but you still go in, sit down, you have a server, there's a kitchen, so the food is presumably made to order, but still has moderate pricing. And then fine dining is kind of self-explanatory, but that's something that's going to be highest price, but you're expecting higher quality food, higher quality service, and the ambience, you know, right? Like you're going for kind of the experience of the restaurant too.
Okay.
And there are fine dining chain restaurants too.
Okay.
Also, let's just talk restaurants in general to start. To kind of lay the groundwork for the other things we'll be discussing. And of course, you know, I had to look up where the word restaurant came from and what the official definition is. Because, you know, if there's not a little etymology lesson.
Yeah. Is it even researching the obvious without some definitions of things?
And some maps, right? It's like, some definitions and some maps, and we're good to go. So... I did. I think everyone knows the definition of a restaurant, right? It's like a place that you get food and beverage, blah, blah, blah. So I won't
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. But what I did find interesting is that the word restaurant actually comes from a French verb, restaurer. I don't know. I'm not very good at French.
Restaurant. It's probably restaurant.
Okay.
Restaurant would probably be what it is.
Okay.
Restaurant.
So it's, a French verb, restaurer, and that verb means to restore. And so there's a reason that that's where the word restaurant comes from. In the late 18th and early 19th century, someone who owned a place to eat was called a restaurateur because they offered food and other items that were supposed to improve your health. Yeah. In particular, soups. Soups were a big, I know your favorite.
I love soup.
Yes.
Soup.
Yes. Yeah. So,
okay, those healing broths.
Yes, that was kind of the idea. So back in that time, right, late 18th, early 19th century, restaurants, they mostly started out as like taverns or a roadside inn, somewhere that you were staying for lodging, and then food came with it. And that was kind of the extent of it, right? So it's not like you go in and sit down and order off a menu. It's like you're staying at this place and you need to eat, and the owner will feed you. But eventually that kind of started to break off a little bit and be more just about the eating. So it was kind of part of the package. And then during the 1820s, large hotels started to pop up. Specifically, they mentioned the Baltimore City Hotel, other places like in New York and Philadelphia, things like that. And those kind of hotels would have like a dining room with a fixed menu. So kind of a step above this idea of a tavern or an inn that just kind of came with food. But it's still like a fixed menu, not something that you would order, a specific dish or something. And they would bring all the food out to the table and you kind of eat. And again, this is part of the hotel package. Eventually that changed. European hotels stopped offering food as part of the package. It was something you could purchase separately, and then Americans followed suit. And so that kind of made the restaurant portion or the food portion a little bit more autonomous from the hotel. So it wasn't just like you were buying a room and like with your room came dinner. It was like you could actually just buy a room and you didn't have to eat at the hotel, but you could. So that was a big shift for the creation of kind of independent restaurants. Side note, oyster cellars and coffee houses were really popular during this time as well. And I guess they could be kind of considered the advent of local individual restaurants. Oyster cellars were places that just sold typically drinks, beverages, and oysters. Everybody loved oysters.
That's so funny because there's a restaurant that I can walk to from my house called Dylan's Oyster Cellar.
Yeah, so they've been around
it must
since,
be like
since the 1800s. That was a big thing. Yep. And
interesting.
I almost went down a rabbit hole on that, and then I had to like refocus myself, but maybe we'll talk about that another time because it was fascinating.
In our oyster episode.
Yes, I want to do an oyster episode because I was reading about these oyster cellars and I was like, oh my God. This is
like the whole process of oysters is fucking fascinating. And I had no clue.
They were like a highly accessible food in terms of class too. Like very popular with people who were not wealthy and people who were wealthy. Like it spanned the whole class.
Yeah. I went to the Baltimore Museum of Industry and they had an entire exhibit about the oyster manufacturing process in Baltimore and how it was very like class leveling, like it was just like a good protein source for I don't know, like anyway, I'm fascinated by it. We should definitely do an oyster episode.
Yes. So anyway. Oyster cellars and coffee houses were popular at this time, but other than that, you mostly saw like what a version of restaurants like we know today in hotels, inns, taverns, that kind of thing. And then by the time we get to the early 19th century, as urban centers have grown and expanded, that's when you start to see the development of fine dining. Okay, so larger cities like New York and Philadelphia and Boston, they start to bring in individual restaurants that are of a higher level and mostly for the upper class. So one of these places that many people have heard of and is probably like one of the most famous ones is Delmonico's in New York. And they had an extensive a la carte menu. They had sophisticated service. So like waiters dressed nicely and all that kind of stuff. And then they also really touted like the freshness and the quality of their ingredients. So it became more of like a place that you would select to eat for that specific experience.
It's so crazy to me to think about a time when restaurants just weren't a thing.
Yeah. Yes.
And it wasn't even really that long ago.
No.
If you think about it.
Because you go from having these hotels that offer food just kind of as a necessity to being more of an upper class thing, like kind of an event to do. But most people ate at home and or had dinner parties, and like dining out was not something you did. And I read too that it's also not something women did. It was mostly a male activity. So it was like men going out to like socialize with each other, and you might go to one of these places, but it was not like, yeah. So it really went from
can't have women in society.
That's right. Yeah. They're supposed to be at home managing the house, not out eating food that was made for them.
I guess women were going to each other's houses for tea or something. Yes. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so you go from these like little kind of restorators, right? These places that you could get some soup and maybe a few light bites kind of thing that were supposed to be good for your health. Restaurants and I say restaurants loosely, but like places to eat in hotels, and then fine dining establishments. And then another shift comes in the late 19th century with an influx of immigrants from other countries, right? So that's a time where a lot of people were coming from other countries into the US. And that actually created a lot of small actual restaurants that were in those ethnic neighborhoods where they would settle. And those became centers for people to get food that was kind of from home, reminded them of home, that kind of thing, but also like community places for those little groups of it. So that was another kind of shift towards having actual restaurants in tandem with fine dining places like Delmonico's, where it was more of like an event kind of thing to go out. And then in the early 20th century, we have industrialization, we have a growing workforce, we have white collar jobs also coming into play, and people are now looking for quick food options, especially around lunchtime. As a break from their jobs, they need to go somewhere and get a quick bite to eat.
That's what I was wondering, if like the expansion of shift work would have changed restaurant needs.
It definitely did. So then that kind of spurred the creation of cafeteria style restaurants. A place called the Automat in New York, which was a deli situation, but you had coin operated little doors where you could grab food and go. And that could kind of be considered one of the first quote unquote fast food options in the restaurant space. Also, those are more economical options, right? So, you're not taking a break from your job and going to Delmonico's to have lobster, right? Like you need something that's affordable and that is quick. So
you probably don't have time for a 5-course spread in the middle of your workday if you are a shift worker at a factory.
Right, exactly.
If you could even afford it.
Exactly. So yeah, and then what's interesting is that during this time, right, the early 20th century, so we have fine dining, and then we have fast food options, and then we have lunch counters, which are also, I guess, more along the lines of fast food or like cafeteria style. Not really
like a diner.
Yes,
I suppose. Yeah,
but casual dining, as we know it today, not really a thing. That doesn't actually happen until after World War II, because women start working during the war and then after as well, and suburban areas start to grow. Automobile culture starts to grow. The highway system comes into being.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, teen culture starts to become a thing, right? Because we're in this post-war era of prosperity and whatnot, the 50s and 60s. And there's this group demographic of teenagers who are hanging out places and needing to socialize. And so
going to the soda fountain.
That's right. Yeah. Soda fountains, drive-ins become a thing. And that kind of in between, that casual dining, it's like not quite fast food, but not fine dining either. That's kind of when that comes into being enforced, right? I mean, obviously there's other examples, but that's where it really flourished. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so we got fast food or quick service restaurants, which usually have drive-throughs. We have casual dining, which is like more relaxed, informal. This is what we're seeing in the 50s and 60s becoming really popular as families start to dine out. Fine dining, like we were talking about, like Delmonico's, big history of that, but really it started out as more of an upper class thing. And then over the years, obviously has evolved. And then fast casual, really, I mean, could you find some examples of something that might be called fast casual way back when? Probably. But fast casual as we know it today is really a really recent concept. And that came about in the late 90s and mid 2000s. And then in particular really took off after the 2008 recession with the demographic of 18 to 34-year-olds looking for less expensive food options that still were considered a little bit healthier, right? And so that's kind of
or just like a place that you could go hang out that wasn't as expensive.
Right. Yes. Because you don't have a server, right?
Yeah. I feel like I lived in Panera Breads for like 4 years.
Yep. It's true. It's true. I know that was, I mean, definitely would have been one of my picks too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea that, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I just didn't think restaurants were that recent an invention.
I didn't think that either. Now, I will say this is the history of restaurants in the United States.
Right.
In other areas of the world, yes, there's a much longer history there. But in terms of the restaurant as we think of it today, I think that is relatively recent. I mean, because even the restaurants here were highly influenced by European culture of that time. So they were like a little bit ahead of us in terms of going to a place and sitting down and eating. But I also didn't think about the fact that, you know, only a couple hundred years ago, people were not going to a restaurant because the chef there makes something really good. They're going to a tavern that they're staying at because they're traveling
and they have nowhere
to somewhere else, and
they're
going to eat whatever the tavern owner makes them for dinner. Or like or you're staying at a hotel, and so it's a necessity. You know, I didn't even talk about like westward expansion and the gold rush, but also there's some like restaurant examples that are more out of necessity of these rural areas and people needing, you know, a place to go for their food.
Right.
But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that either. The idea that really modern restaurants as we know them, 1920s and forward, is about where they start for us. That's
here. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And obviously we're also not talking about street food vendors or things like that.
And now I'm thinking of like our pizza episode too, and just when pizza came to the United States and when those pizza places started, it was also just around this time frame.
Yes.
Like 1920s. So it's like, yes, it had to do with immigration, but also just in general, restaurants weren't things.
Yes. And there's a lot of economic factors too that come in. So I didn't even go into all of that. I will put a link of this obviously in our show notes, but there's a website I found called Restauranting Through History, and it looks like a blog that someone has started and done a lot of research on the history of restaurants, and they give a really good breakdown of each kind of decade of restaurant history in America. And I could have spent a long time talking about all of the stuff that they covered, but things like the Great Depression, actually also had a big effect on restaurants because up until that point, fine dining was kind of more the direction restaurants were going. With the Depression, there was still a desire to go to places to get food, but places had to lower their prices because otherwise people couldn't afford them. And so they would start offering deals and like at lunch counters kind of thing. So that really also brought the fine dining expectation down, right? Whereas the focus for restaurants had been on fine dining. Now all of a sudden, some of these places want to stay in business. We have to find this more in between or like this lower price point stuff because those fine dining places were suffering because you know, people weren't spending as much money. People didn't have money to spend, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's multiple like economic factors over the years too that have kind of influenced and shaped the way the restaurant industry goes. And yeah, if you want to read more about that, like I said, this website was really great.
Yeah.
I started to go down that rabbit hole and then I was like, maybe I shouldn't. Also, the women's movement had a huge impact because by the 30s, there were a ton of female restaurant owners in that space, actually. Yeah, multiple things. Maybe even for another episode someday.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I guess the point is modern restaurants as we know them today, really a more recent thing.
Yeah.
Especially casual dining and fast casual. But yeah, also fine dining and fast food really took off more like early 1900s.
Yeah. Interesting.
Other than oyster cellars.
Yes.
Those have been around forever.
Mainly oysters. I guess people just don't want to shuck oysters in the comfort of their own home. Hey, Katie. Remember that time that we wanted to start a podcast based on all of our random research conversations?
Yeah, and we had no idea what we were doing or how we would even make a podcast.
Yeah, that's the time. It was a really good thing we found Podbean, because that made it super easy to upload all of our episodes to multiple streaming platforms.
Podbean is a really simple platform for hosting and publishing your podcast.
So, if you and your best friend are having random conversations that you think should be a podcast, check out Podbean.
And if you do, use our link to get a month free. Podbean.com/obvious. That's PODBEAN.com/obvious.
And become super cool podcasters like us.
World famous.
Yeah. So I think sometimes too, when people think about like all these chain restaurants, they think of this whole corporate structure and this big like monolith, right? Like we know that McDonald's is a huge global company, right? Like global corporation, right? But there's also different models for how chain restaurants work. And the two basic models for how chain restaurants work are the franchise model and the corporate model. So I think a lot of people think that all chain restaurants are owned by one big corporation. And that is true if that chain restaurant follows the corporate model. And basically what the corporate model is that it's a chain that consists of multiple locations that are entirely owned and operated by the parent company. So basically, the corporation is overseeing all the aspects of management and operations for those locations. So while there might be store managers in each of the locations, the managers are essentially employed by the global corporation.
Okay.
And the corporation is the one that's dictating how the functions of that location will go. And then the local manager is just kind of overseeing like day-to-day operations and probably staff schedules and things like this. So the structure of corporate chains means that the single company that owns all of them gets all of the financial gains, all of the losses, and maintains all of the control and uniformity.
Yes. Yeah, you got it.
Across all of its locations. So some examples of chains that are corporate chains. Chipotle, the first A fast casual restaurant, that one is a corporate chain. Starbucks is also a corporate chain. KFC is a corporate chain. Domino's, Cracker Barrel, which I thought was a little funny to be a corporate chain. So even like their store, I guess, is just someone in corporates deciding what to sell at that little Cracker Barrel.
Well, they all are pretty much the same. I mean, like they have the same stuff.
Yeah. Like Denny's, IHOP, these are corporate chains. So those are all going to be chain restaurants that are controlled like at the top in like a global headquarters type of situation. The other type of model for chain restaurants is the franchise. And probably more of the restaurants that you're going to are franchises than they are corporate. And I looked up the history of franchising because I was just kind of curious.
Yes, I'm curious.
Model.
I'm curious too.
Basically, the way franchising works is that you have an individual who acts as an independent operator. So basically, they're a contractor, an independent contractor. And what they do is they purchase the right to use the franchisor's name, business model, and support network. So you have an independent contractor that's like, I want to be a business owner, but I don't really want to come up with my own business. I'll just purchase the right to open one of these existing businesses. And so then they can open the business, use all of the, products, all of the naming, all of the modeling, right? Like it's all basically laid out for them. And then also they get to utilize the existing shipping structure,
supply chain,
exactly, like all the supplies and all that stuff to open the business. Franchising actually started in the 1800s and not with restaurants. So the idea of franchising, it started in the US in the 1850s. And the first franchise model business was for Singer sewing machines, which I thought was kind of cool. And the reason is because Singer sewing machines, they were trying to sell more of their machines around the country. They're part of like Sears catalog and stuff. So they're trying to sell more machines around the country. But the issue was that repairing them was a fairly specific and skilled task. Because they were a little challenging to repair. And so the Singer sewing machine company decided we could create like mini locations around the country for repair shops for our sewing machines. So that would encourage people to buy our sewing machines because closer to them would be a Singer repair operation. Yeah. And so that was the first franchise, was basically these like Singer sewing machine repair shops. But it really grew as a business model in the mid 1900s, and particularly with the growth of fast food that you were talking about. So So while franchising did exist early on in the 1850s, it didn't really take off until the 1950s. And the big ones that helped franchising grow was McDonald's Holiday Inn, which I thought was kind of interesting, was a big early one. And Tasty Freeze, the Tasty Freeze.
Sitting outside the Tasty Freeze.
Yeah.
Sucking on chili dogs outside the Tasty Freeze, I mean. Yes.
Yeah. But so McDonald's and Tasty Freeze were really the restaurants that got franchising as a business model to grow. And so it exploded in the 1950s. I just have some stats that I thought were interesting. In 1950, less than 100 companies in the US used franchising as their business model.
Okay.
By 1960, so within 10 years, more than 900 companies used franchising. And it involved an estimated 200,000 franchised outlets. So within 10 years, we went from only 100 companies being franchise operations to over 900 companies being franchise operations in the US. And so there's a ton of restaurants that are franchised. Dunkin' Donuts is franchised, McDonald's, Burger King, Baja Fresh, Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, Sonic, some non-fast food ones, Yard House, TGI Fridays, Olive Garden, Nando's, Peri Peri, PF Chang's, Outback, Longhorn, Red Lobster. A fancy one you were talking about, fine dining chains. Ruth's Chris is
that's a franchise
model.
We have a couple of those.
Yeah. So there's just a ton of these because they're pretty easy for people to get into, right? If you want to own your own business, you can get enough capital to then just purchase the rights to open up one of these restaurant
and then
options.
you also get some of the profit too.
Yeah, then it's basically what it comes down to is once you put the upfront capital, and it's different depending on how, whatever restaurant it is that you're opening. I think they said a McDonald's is like $43,000 or something like that. So it depends on what you're trying to open, but yeah, basically you put the upfront capital up to buy the rights to open one of these restaurants. And then, you set it up. And then essentially every, month or however it works out, the percentage of your profits would go back to the parent company. So if you're a super profitable Dunkin' location, yeah, you're sending a percent back, but you're also theoretically making bank on your Dunkin' Donuts. And the key too, I think, to be really successful at franchising is to own multiple locations. So there's not a limit legally. There's no limit on how many outlets of a franchise you can own, but some corporations do limit the number that you can have. So McDonald's has a limit on however many McDonald's, like individual McDonald's, you could own as a person. But then some don't have any limit. So Sonic and Taco Bell, you can own as many as you want, right? Like that was the whole thing with the movie The Blind Side, is that he was a Taco Bell mogul. He owned like hundreds of Taco Bells.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So you could be a franchisor and own like hundreds of Sonics. A lot of people that own hundreds of Sonics or hundreds of Taco Bells, they become even more profitable because they can often sway the supply, basically, because they own so many of them that it's like, oh, well, we could send you your own truck because you need all of this product because you own 200 Taco Bells.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it becomes really lucrative. The first guy to become a billionaire as a franchisor.
Billionaire?
Yeah. His name was Greg Flynn, and he owns 2,400 individual restaurants. And it's a mix. It's basically a combination of Panera Breads, Arby's, Applebee's, and Taco Bell's.
Okay.
Yeah, and he became a billionaire just by owning those restaurants. But franchises have grown a lot, and they currently make up a large percentage of the restaurant landscape. In 2017, that was the most recent data I could find, unfortunately, because the economic census is only done once every 10 years, and then they wait to release the data. So anyway, 2017 is the most recent economic census data that the US has. But of limited service restaurants, so the fast food, franchises made up 57.3%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
US. So pretty much.
That's significant.
Almost 2/3 of the fast food restaurants in the US are franchises. Vermont has the lowest number of franchises.
Why does that not surprise me?
We're wondering about that. And South Dakota has the highest. So yeah, so franchises, like if we're thinking about the restaurant landscape, solid chance when we're talking about chain restaurants, especially fast food and fast casual, it's going to be a franchise restaurant.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
But I feel like it also, the other thing about franchises, I feel like that also maybe explains why the Dunkin' Donuts in some places are not as good as the Dunkin' Donuts in other places, because they all have individual owners.
Yes.
And they're following the Dunkin' model, but...
That's why I'm saying that I've always felt that maybe the Dunkin' Donuts in New England, the owners care more about the standard that is supposed to be Dunkin'.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say that there's some Dunkin' Donuts. Like, there's a lot of Dunkin' Donuts in Baltimore.
It's just Dunkin' now, by the way. I learned that.
Yeah, it's true. It is just Dunkin'. But there's like 3 Dunkin' by my house in Baltimore.
3?
Yeah. We have 3 just in my neighborhood.
Wow.
That I could get to. But there's definitely one that I prefer over the others.
The others.
So the owner of that one must just be, I don't know, must be better.
Yeah. To give you a sense, too, because I was talking earlier about how many chains we have nearby. We have 1 Dunkin' Donuts that's within that radius that I was talking about with the Starbucks. So just 1. And then there's a second one that's second and third one that are a little bit further away. But like compared to like our 6 or 7 Starbucks, like it's just not as prevalent here.
Yeah, we have a Starbucks, I should say, in my neighborhood.
You can't.
A lot more Dunkins.
Yeah. You can't turn around without running into a Starbucks here. It's really annoying. But I did find out too a little bit more on, we were talking about just the regionality of chain restaurants and how dense they are in different regions. I did find out that there's a reason, or maybe this could be a contributing reason for that. Indianapolis is one of the top metro areas for being a test market, apparently. Yeah, so now this is slightly older data because, well, I think probably because of what you just said, the economic census doesn't happen that often. So this is 2016. Indianapolis, and then they list Carmel, Anderson, which are surrounding areas of Indianapolis, have a resemblance index of 93.5. And that resemblance index is basically how well does this area resemble the rest of the country, like represent the overall demographics.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they look at like housing stats and economic stats and socio-demographic things. And Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, they all have really good demographics in terms of resembling the overall national demographic. And therefore are considered desirable test markets if you're thinking about taking a chain or a concept or even different food ideas for chain restaurants. Like, we're probably one of the places that they would start to test it out and see how it does before they roll it out elsewhere. So I thought that was really...
It makes me wonder, though, if a lot of the ones that are coming into Indianapolis are corporate model.
I kind of wonder that, too, now. Like, that maybe they're coming in here to see how they do here before they expand into other Midwest regions or things like that. Because as many as we have and as many open, we've had a lot leave, too.
Yeah.
That I feel like they just haven't done that well, and then they just go away.
Yeah. I feel like you told me that, like, every time that new ones open, you're like, oh, but then this one closed, because there was that Mediterranean one.
Yeah, Garbanzo.
Yeah. That was like Mediterranean Chipotle.
Yes.
All right.
I was really sad. Yeah, I was really sad. Well, the one closest to us closed. There's still another one. So there you go. But yeah, we've had several chains come in that have, like, I feel... they only last a year or 2. And then before you know it, new ones are opening up and those have closed down.
So, I don't know, like, Indianapolis has so many, but do you know which chain restaurant has the most number in the United States? Like, which is the largest?
Well, if I were going to guess, I mean, I would say McDonald's, but maybe that's too obvious.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of tricks you because the chain restaurant with the most locations in the US is Subway.
Oh.
But that includes like all the ones that are in Walmarts and stuff.
Well, still though, Subway's that popular?
Well, the number of Subway locations in the US is 20,000. There's over 20,000 Subway locations.
Okay.
Followed by Starbucks, which I guess, again, you have Starbucks that exist
We have 10 million alone in Indianapolis.
Well, and they exist in Targets and in grocery stores and in, but so there's over 16,000 Starbucks.
Oh, I wasn't even counting the Target locations as ones near me. So add a couple more.
And then McDonald's is number 3. They have over 13,000 locations.
Wow, but 20,000 for Subway then.
Yeah,
7,000 more.
But So I did look at this list, though, that includes, it's from foodindustry.com, so it seems legit, but it's this list that ranks them in terms of revenue. And so even though Subway has 20,000 locations, they're actually 8th in the country in terms of revenue. So they have a ton of locations, but they don't bring in a ton of money. Number 1 in the country is McDonald's in terms of revenue, even though they're number 3 in terms of locations.
So do we think that means that there's more people frequenting the McDonald's locations than the Subway location?
I mean, I think it's probably a combo, right? Because one, Subway's probably just in general, it's cheaper and you're not selling as many products. So, right, you're not bringing in as much money, period. But also, I think probably they're just not frequented as much. But they might not need, because of their business model, they might not need as many patrons to survive, for a location to survive either, you know? So, but yeah, McDonald's is number 1 for revenue. Starbucks is actually 2 for revenue and 2 for locations. But Dunkin' is number 4 in the US for a number of locations. Yeah, and they're a little over 9,000 locations.
I wonder how many of those locations are in New England.
In New England alone. I know.
Yeah, because
it's literally got to be high.
Literally every town, even the tiniest towns in New England, have a Dunkin' Donuts.
100%. Right. Like you can be at one Dunkin' Donuts and throw a rock and hit like 3 other Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
Yep. It's just facts. And then to round it out, number 5 is Taco Bell. In terms of locations, 7,000, a little over 7,000 Taco Bells, all owned by the Blindside guy, I guess. Just kidding. Not really. Thank you for listening to Researching the Obvious. To learn more fun facts about everything that we're researching, follow us on Instagram at Researching the Obvious Pod, all one word. You can also follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you know someone that you think would enjoy listening to all of our findings, please feel free to share or give us a review. Researching the Obvious is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Emily Fekete and Katie Nakanishi. Tune in next time to hear more obvious facts.
An 1800 advertisement for a new Portland, Maine restaurateur. A poem. With collared beef and collared veal and potted lobster, potted eel, chicks fricasseed and fine ragouts, beef a la mode and barbecues, sausage bologna, Hamburg Naples, good minced pies and tarts of apples, choice venison pastry, pork pie Cheshire, and good beefsteak and bacon rasher. Or if you rather wish to dine on round of beef or fat sirloin, or turkey roast and hung in chains, or calf's head boiled with tongue and brains, mock turtle soup once every week, and chowder royal them bespeak. Ducks a la mode to please the taste, with custards, tarts, and good puff paste. With things too tedious here to mention, supplied by market and invention.